All right, let's talk about Bryce Young, a difficult player to talk about because, listen, first overall pick, a lot of people really liked him coming out of college, as did I. I did have CJ Stroud as my number one quarterback of that draft class, but I had Bryce Young as my number two prospect. You can't make a victory lap for, that. I mean, he was really good coming out of college, and it didn't go well year one. Box score stats, which I don't love to use, were terrible in year one. Advanced stats, which I kind of like to use sometimes, were also not very good. Tape, which I love to use, is watching the film and discussing things that way, was also very bad. I mean, I've made film studies talking about his NFL tape, and while there are flashes and things to be optimistic about, the main takeaway is you have to just get him in a better situation to really get a good evaluation of him. But if this is my evaluation, it wasn't a great rookie year, I think. Even with all of the but what abouts that you have, but what about his bad offensive line? Yeah, but what about the coaching staff? Yeah, but what about the receiving core? Yeah, but what about playing for Carolina, a team that struggled to, be consistently good under new ownership? All of that stuff is very fair and valid. I think even with it, it was a underwhelming rookie year by Bryce Young. But that does not mean he's a bust or a bad player or we should write him off by any stretch of the imagination. There's absolutely still potential with Bryce Young. Bryce Young had a better rookie year than Peyton Manning did, right? So there's certainly no reason to hit the panic button, but I was interested in how people felt about him. So I put up a community poll on my YouTube channel, which I put this out, a couple days ago now, because when this video gets posted, it'll be a couple of days later than I'm recording this video. But so check out the YouTube channel on the community tab if you want to see, where the poll is at now. But this was the community tab, and you see I just asked, how do you feel about Bryce Young's rookie year? The overwhelming majority said it's hard to say due to the bad situation he was put in, which I agree. That's what I would have voted for had I voted in this poll. There were more people leaning towards the probably a bust category than the he'll be fine category, but again, most people were in the middle. It is worth mentioning, anytime you have extremes like he's a bust or he's going to be awesome, you're not going to get too many votes there, but only 1% said he's going to be awesome. So vibes aren't great for Bryce Young, but they're not terrible either. Most people are kind of in where I'm at, which was, maybe wasn't a great rookie year, but it was a bad situation. It's hard to really evaluate him. Let's give him another year. However, it's the offseason, and we have months until we're going to get more Bryce Young footage, so I wanted to still talk about it and try to see if we can, come up with more information. And so what I did was, I went back and watched a bunch of his college footage and said, what can I find here that might either be more optimistic or pessimistic about how we view Bryce Young now that we've gotten more information, now that we've seen him in the NFL? Well, let's start off with this play. I think what you have to start off with is it's very good. I mean, the tape, there's a lot of really good stuff on here. This is a third down and 6 situation. You see the route Bryce Young wants to throw towards. When this play begins, Young is going to take the snap. He's going to, eventually look towards the route I talked about, but you see there is a defender who's, rushing the quarterback and getting pretty close. Bryce Young kind of has to throw this one a bit wonky. There's actually a couple defenders who are in his area, so this is a difficult play. However, while having to kind of adjust, still makes a really accurate throw. This is what Young was great at last year, was his ability to make these off-platform throws and to make these unique throws. It's funny because I think a lot of people will say, oh, well, that's the issue is, Bryce Young played for Alabama where things were so easy for him that once he goes to the more difficult situation, well, that's where, he's going to struggle. But going back and watching, when he was in difficult situations in college, he was usually pretty fine. This play is another one where it's going to be a one-on-one matchup down the field. And again, this is one of those things where, okay, you're waiting, it's like the Tua thing. You're waiting for guys to get Alabama open. That's kind of what people talk about with Young. Well, when this play begins, you're going to see that he looks down the field and fires down the field. And right here, this is open, this NFL open. It's not Alabama open, though. You're going to have to put this one in a good spot. But that's what Bryce Young does. He makes some really accurate throws. Again, the college tape is good. So anyone saying that, he actually was never good, I just don't believe you actually mean that. I think you're kind of being a bit silly saying something like that. No, there was a lot of really good stuff. But then let's go over here. So then what's the issue, right? What are we talking about here? To me, this is something you can certainly point towards is, I'm saying that, hey, it's not totally fair to say that the difficult situation is the adjustment, and he's someone who can only be successful if he's in a perfect situation. I do think there has been a pretty massive situation jump, though, and that might kind of be the issue. Something like this, it's a 3rd down and 22. He's at his own 2-yard line. Not the ideal situation to be put in. You see that Tennessee is going with kind of an all-out blitz right here. That's what they're going to do. So when Bryce Young takes the snap, right here, in a perfect situation, he'd be throwing a check down to the halfback. That's what would be happening here. Would it go for a 1st down? Honestly, there actually is a chance because no one picked up the halfback, but probably not. Probably a Tennessee player would run over and make a tackle, but hey, it's better than getting sacked in your own end zone, and, throwing the ball out there, you can gain some yards, make it a lot easier for your punter, which really does matter in these situations. Gaining 7 yards here can actually be the difference of like 20 to 25 yards in terms of field position. But if you look over at Bryce Young, he's not looking in that direction. He didn't realize this was a blitz right away. Credit to him, he did get that ball off. It wasn't ruled grounding. I guess they said the halfback was close enough. Honestly, could have been safety there, certainly. But, for Bryce Young, it's hard to look at this and say this is a bad play by him, right? It was a clever blitz. Like, he got fooled a little bit. Happens to Tom Brady in year 20, right? But watching this play got me thinking a little bit when it comes to Bryce Young about, one of the things we talked a lot about was how good of an improviser he was. When a play didn't work, how good he was able to be sort of after that point, after the 2.5 second mark. A play like this, for example, this is going to be the situation is actually a 2-point conversion attempt. They're down 2 points, early on in the 3rd quarter. Young is going to take the snap, and I'm going to pause it at the 2.5 second mark. He's looking down the field and doesn't love what he sees. Here is the, I think, biggest issue with Bryce Young. If he's playing for the Carolina Panthers, he is not being able to do much at this point. He is basically about to get tackled and about to get sacked. You have to get rid of the ball in 2.5 seconds, and a lot of times he was in these situations where there was nothing he could do, like there was no one to throw to. Here, though, the offensive line, holds up and he finds someone else to get open, right? And it's kind of one of those situations where, as a quarterback, if you have a receiver open, well then, unless your offensive line does really bad, you're probably going to be okay. Just hit the open receiver. If your first read isn't open, well, as long as the offensive line does a good enough job, you should be able to get to at least another read, and hopefully that guy is able to get open. Essentially, the way I view it is that Bryce Young didn't go from a good situation to a tough situation. Bryce Young went from a good situation to an awful situation. I think that's worth noting. The way I would compare it is almost like, it's like the video game. Let's use Retro Bowl. If you ever played Retro Bowl, it's a little game on your phone. It's a fun way to pass the time sometimes. Actually, weirdly fun for a free phone game. But, so free plug for Retro Bowl. This is not, I'm not getting paid to advertise Retro Bowl. But it's the kind of thing where you play a certain way and then eventually you start to get pretty good at it. And so once you start to get pretty good at it and you're winning the Retro Bowl every year, well, you want to up the difficulty and you want to go from medium to hard. And then you go to, up the difficulty and then it's really hard. And then you start losing right away and you don't play very well because there's different tricks you have to work at the next difficulty. Then eventually you get good at that and then you go up to expert, right? For me, what Bryce Young essentially did was went from medium difficulty to expert difficulty, and so because of that, he's understandably going to struggle a little bit more than someone like CJ Stroud, who maybe just went from, medium to hard difficulty and happened to handle that very well. When one of Bryce Young's selling points is what he does after the 2.5 second mark, and here there isn't a lot of opportunities for him to do good stuff when that happens, although there are some, and he has been good when those situations have happened. To me, this leads me to believe, okay, he's got to figure out how to win at the NFL level. And again, part of that is going to be maybe just get the difficulty away from expert and get it back down to hard. That could make things easier, go down a difficulty. And by that, I mean adding receivers. They did add receivers and offensive linemen. Hopefully that helps for Young. But in going back and doing this exercise, I think the main things I learned were that, A, if there was any doubt, yes, he was still very good in college. Yes, there are still really good aspects of his game. Sometimes he isn't the quickest processor, and I think in fairness to him, in college, it was smart to be a little bit of a slow processor. Like, that was the correct strategy. Again, it's the correct strategy on medium. It's not the correct strategy on expert. So he's just going to have to learn to adjust his strategy, which usually you do, but it might just not happen year one. And again, making it an easier situation should help him as well. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from ya. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.